Gaming and the world around us is changing fast. And I personally, as a black woman, do not like that in the slightest. You will own nothing and be happy is not exactly what I want in my life.
To do this video right, I need you to feel something, and to do that, I'm going to activate your nostalgia. So, do you remember what a new game smells like? The feeling of a shell case opening for the first time, the anticipation as you pop the disc out and put it in your console.
I actually do remember opening a new game used to be so good. I'm not talking about the big boxes, which are kind of honestly lame. I'm talking about the music CD ones, the little ones, those ones. Yeah, those were prime, okay? The first time you open the click and all of that stuff, those are some good memories, even when the game didn't work.
Here's the thing. For huge chunks of the gaming audience now, none of those memories exist. Gaming just means choosing a download from a menu or entering a code from an email. Basically, the physicality
Disgusting.
of the medium has changed. How we interact with it, with our senses, has changed. And now that new reality is solidifying. Physical games are becoming less viable for big companies. And that means indie teams are asking a bit of a question. Can we treat physical games with respect again? How do we take them seriously? There is the massive issue with preservation. So essentially, to answer all of these questions and see where gaming is going next, well, we first need to see just how bad it's got. At the risk of stating the obvious, the tide has turned, but we've got data. So here's what corporate financials revealed over the last week. Physical games really are not in a good place. Take Capcom. Monster Hunter Wilds is the best-selling game of the year, yet 94% of their sales last year were digital. And of course, when buying digital games is so convenient, that's obviously going to happen. But it means part of our experience with games has changed, and it also means that preservation goes out the window. That's the other side.
Game preservation is so overrated, okay? I can still download Zanzara the Hidden Portal on any torrenting site I want at any point, which I don't obviously do because that would be bad YouTube. On this channel, everything ever said is satire.
An important side of today's video, and one I know you guys care about. Anytime we talk about preservation, it blows up in the channel. And in this case, the preservation problem is pretty simple. There's no longer a physical backup by default. Now, that ship is obviously long sailed in PC. Consoles had been our holdout, and there is data to show it. There are some games that still do well physically. Take family games like Astrobot, that still hits 55 to 60% physical sales in its mix. You've got big.
Yeah, but isn't that like a PlayStation thing? People that use consoles in general still buy more physical copies of games. Now, admittedly, it's shrinking and shrinking, but it's way more than on PC because a PC player will buy 10 games in the time span that a peasant gets one game.
Mainstream games like, say, Hogwarts Legacy that have had massive physical numbers. So the battle's not over, but here's, well, how things really are changing. Nintendo, right? The classic game cart, a massive thing in games preservation, yet even Nintendo was losing ground here. They had been the champions of physical game sales, but now they're introducing a new game key card system where basically you have your physical card as a license. Then with that, you unlock a digital download. So it's a weird halfway solution. I suppose what they want to do is cover some of the increasing Switch 2 like game cart costs, and of course all of the ambiguity and craziness going on with tariffs and physical logistics. They clearly want people to have a digital experience.
Most of that is BS, by the way. They're just taking this opportunity as everyone else to drive up prices and call it a day.
They want to be eShop first. And so there's a very clear message. For the mainstream audiences, it's an obvious trend where the future of physical games is going to entirely be on enthusiasts. People like you and me, not the general public. A little bit like how, in the age of Apple Music, Spotify, and all the big streaming services, we've also seen a resurgence of the vinyl. Now for the exciting bit. So, Lost in Cult is a group that's following a familiar path. It's one we've seen in other media like cinema, where streaming is convenient, but it lacks luxury, it lacks prestige. So, cinemas try to treat screenings as events.
Is is this gonna be the everything goes around in the big circle kind of situation? Because there's a lot of things that are going around in circles. Okay, streaming is just becoming TV. People are starting to buy TVs again because, in general, TV is now actually kind of almost worth it in some situations. Still pretty bad, But again, we're getting back to the point where TVs are not obsolete. I have lived my life with 15 years without television. That's quite insane, honestly.
But in games, that's a little bit harder. I mean, some of us get nostalgic for a midnight release, but convenience is king. You preload your game, you start playing the moment it unlocks. It's a good experience, actually. That's what most people do want. So,
Convenience is the most important thing. We are consumers, especially the newest Gen Z and whatnot generations.
game audiences obviously accept digital releases because they're honestly kind of awesome. And by now, even when you buy a collector's edition, so often what you get is a code in the box, not, a disc with any content. Sometimes you'll get a disc, but the disc will basically have nothing on it. So yes, the tide has turned, we're not going back, but we are going forward. And that's where Lost in Cult come in, because they are offering an alternative. They're a group that have published art books, vinyls, and collector's editions before. They champion games as artistic products through their Design Work series, which is awesome. But now they're applying the principle to physical games and
Is it actually awesome? Question mark.
trying to bring them back. Essentially, what they'll do is create bespoke collector's editions for acclaimed titles. And in so many cases, that's games that have never had a physical release before. And that's all with a mature coffee table book aesthetic, the sort of thing meant for people who actually appreciate
Bro, this seems more like a sponsor segment than actually anything else, not gonna lie.
games as art, the things you'd proudly display if you owned them. Now, they're starting this with 3 award-winning games: The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, Immortality, and Thank Goodness You're Here. Each one of these gets an edition, the first in the series. Each box will have a full game. It'll be updated with bug fix, patches, and all that stuff, and all the usual extras, right? Art assets, posters, even a signed note from the director. But here's where it actually gets different, because they also preserve the game's context. You'll also in these find critical essays, dev interviews, and as they put it, quote, preserving not just the game, but the story and artistry behind its creation.
So they're essentially trying to go back to the days when you bought World of Warcraft and there was this take of a player manual, okay?
That's awesome. Now the price is a little bit more than digital, but basically it's respectful and it's earnest about what these games—
Oh, shut up! Fuck up. 170 quid for 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 a fake signature of a guy I don't care about? I'm sorry, this is just daylight robbery at this point. This is why I hate this artsy crap when it comes to gaming. The whole game is an art piece of itself, okay? I don't want some loser to repackage it with a bow and tie on it and make a goddamn vinyl of the soundtrack. No. This is daylight goddamn robbery. Listen, if you're into this, good, good. How about you donate some money to me, okay? I promise to spend it on crack cocaine and hookers. And you know what? That promise is better than whatever the hell this garbage is supposed to be. Okay, if you want to collect these, okay, fine by me. But if you're gonna go around and be like, oh, I'm so better than you because I spent an exorbitant amount of money on something that's honestly worth less than Diablo Immortal's $800 800% value pack deal. Good, bruh, I don't want to hear about it, okay?
It's respectful, and it's—
When your pricing seems actually more predatory than Diablo Immortal, that's where I draw the line.
earnest about what these games actually are: pieces of art. And this then creates a luxury experience, a reason to buy physical, because this is the type of experience that digital simply cannot give you. That then is a really good start. But there's more.
This sounds worse than all of those companies that deliver you whole-meal professional chef meals.
In fact, there's more than makes this actual preservation of games. First up, Lost in Cult is working with the Does It Play group. They basically give a stamp of approval.
Also, fun fact, by the way, the word professional is very deceptive. It literally refers to as anyone who makes money off of or makes a living off of doing something. The same way I'm somehow a professional YouTuber because I make my living off of this, sadly. You know, so the fentanyl addict that's currently dying passed out on a hot stove that's currently making your meal is also a professional chef, believe it or not.
before production, but only if games meet three criteria. One, that the game does not need the internet to activate core content. Two, no downloads are needed to complete the game. Three, all core content is on the disc. So if you're sick of patches, day one patches, well, this isn't a problem. This will give you a complete experience. And even better, they're also making sure that researchers and museums have got access to this content as well. That's awesome. Basically, they'll be able to use these editions as a long-term form of record keeping. So I think both of these moves are pretty awesome. Essentially, it's a statement of intent that audiences
Oh
can
boy.
rely on that's, I think, quite verifiable. The idea being, buy one of these games.
Listen, I'd rather go play cricket or squash. No, not squash. Squash pretty cool. But you know, the thing that Archer does in India loves. The thing with the, yeah, that one. Okay? I'd rather do that.
It goes in your console, and it just works. Now, that is a far cry from current physical releases where you pop a disc in and who knows, maybe there'll be a working game on it, but you'll have to pop it in and find out if you need a download. Before this new initiative, there's actually one more factor, and this one really proves that it's about preservation, not just prestige. They're only making 1,000 to 1,500 editions at a time.
Oh, so they can ask for more money because it's a collector. Elliot, you're literally getting played in this video. You're getting skamazed. What are you doing?
Now, these could go out of print rather quickly, which is not preservation. So what Lost in Cult did is they partnered with PM Studios. PM Studios are going to make standard retail versions of each game. Now, these will be half the price of the premium edition.
Oh god, yeah, of course, okay. So, the solution for the fact that we're gonna make these things that have no potential limit because we can make as many as we want, um, we're not gonna make as many as we want. We're gonna make a limited amount. So there's FOMO, okay? They're literally just taking, okay? They're literally just taking the classic abusive, manipulative, pay-to-win game monetization systems and putting them in real life. This is what this is, okay? Limited time offer. Buy this. Oh yes. And then you're not going to be able to buy it again. There's only 1,500 copies of this thing that we can make more copies of if we please. But if we did that, we wouldn't have the ability to, make it more expensive. But don't worry. Here's the normal version for all of you plebeians. God, this is so stupid.
You get the same preservation promises. You don't get the premium rewards, right? The super luxury stuff. But they exist as real games you can pop into a console and have actually work. So this means that store owners can actually buy and distribute these physical copies. Players can buy them directly online. Now, of course, this won't be, a day one release thing. They actually do need time to make a final patched version of a game. And even at half price, digital probably still will be cheaper. But the point here is, if you want a physical version of a game without online requirements, DRM, limitations, all that bullshit, now it's actually an option. And this is what makes it actual preservation, not just a prestige product. And as Ryan Brown, who's the head of publishing, puts it, here's a quote, "Our retail releases ensure no one is locked out of owning great games physically, giving everyone a chance to play their favorites for decades to come, internet connection willing or not." Because here's the truth. Preservation in a vault, say in a museum that no one can access, or a library that's got ridiculous onerous terms, looking at you, ESA, you bastards, we did a video on them a while back, that's not preservation. That's just hoarding and control. What matters then is that you're actually allowed to sell these as products. You can make money off them, which is good, because in the real world, without the money making sense, none of this would exist. And what's neat is that the very expensive limited run 1,000 to 1,500 limited copy thing, yeah, that's really damn expensive, but it actually helps to fund the overall preservation initiative. That's making the economics make sense, which kind of tells me that it's not just a feel-good thing, it's quite literally, hey, if we want preservation to happen, we actually need to make it work in the real world. And that's what makes this exciting.
That's what makes it possible to have multiple tiers of how much you want to pay for your preservation. That's what allows it to make it into a luxury product that's worth 200 buckaroonies. Yeah, yeah, surely.
Solving problems that have actually doomed previous efforts. Because for real preservation, people need to be able to afford and access things. So just a short run at a very high price, that's not ideal for preservation. That's why I'm kind of hyped for it. Lost and Cult are basically ahead of the curve in the business model they're running with here. They've partnered with groups that are doing interesting things to help.
So this doesn't work. Why? Because, well, first of all, good luck getting like any big company to actually do this. Maybe you're gonna get an indie to do this or whatever, but everyone else is just gonna be like, I don't care about your opinions.
That mission, and they seem to have got
If we want to set, but okay, there is a chance they actually can get some bigger games to do this, but that would mean a pretty hefty split for them. More likely heftier than your typical games because you know all of these Call of Duties they have physical copies that you can buy, and physical copies, by the way, are cheaper to now make for a lot of games because at some point we're gonna get to the point where it's just Amazon shipment that EA is gonna have some not EA but Activision is gonna have some kind of deal with Amazon that they just handle distribution and you can just pre-order all of that directly and it's gonna be made easier and this is gonna be obsolete. At some point all the big game companies are gonna be like, hey, we can literally get an exact number of people who wanna buy the physical version. We can charge over exaggerated prices for this garbage, and then it's just free money. These companies are gonna sooner or later come to this conclusion.
got it right from the first reveal. Now, some of you may be thinking that you've heard things like this before, and you're right, this idea is not new. Solving preservation commercially is a thing. We all tried that in 2015 with limited run games, but 10 years and many controversies later, yes, Limited Run Games is a company that is not fit for purpose. They ended up giving physical preservation a bad name, degraded boards, per rep, just bad for commercial preservation, which is actually what we want. We want a market, we want an economy, and not one that's based on bullshit hype speculation stuff. Now, this all does also highlight a potential problem for Lost and Cult. Right? Their offerings are typically indie titles. They're games with a cult following. It's kind of in the name. So basically, it's all about bringing modern games to physical while celebrating them for the most dedicated fans and ensuring they are playable, physical, and preserved, which I absolutely love. But there is a difference compared to, say, the initial mission of Limited Run. These are not retro titles. These are not small games. They're games with an existing audience that can be sold to. And that does leave actual retro preservation kind of aside. I mean, Limited Run Games at least had some successes there despite their faults. Basically, they used their Carbon engine to power emulators. It was all pretty cool. It ended up not really, ending it that well. They lost a lot of credibility, but the problem they were trying to solve of retro preservation is something that right now Lost and Cult are not really doing. Or at least they're not starting there. They're in a very different place with a very
It's almost like they're trying to make money at least, not making money, but trying to make money. Who would have expected?
very different target audience. So, is it a perfect solution? I would say absolutely not. Obviously not. This is a boutique retailer that is seeking a viable business model, which I would say is obviously not bad. It's a model that aligns with good ethics. They're not doing ridiculous bullshit. It's one that makes them comfortable with their sales approach. It was never going to be able to solve every preservation problem at once, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't celebrate the good here and that we shouldn't learn from it. We should. And to actually save the history of video games, we need to act in those learnings. I mean, even when industry trends say that physical preservation will stay niche, this is looking promising. And what did it take? In a way, not that much. A plan, right? Decision making that seems to respect everyone equally, right? The audience, the developer, the art form, and importantly, very importantly, the need for profit earned in return for value added, which is good. That given consideration, so it works for everyone. In a world of slop, don't stand out by just
AI
tweaking
slop, baby.
Be the person who is selling quality to people who value quality. That's why I like this. And if
I mean, we have been living in that world forever. We can see it. We can see the quality over quantity thing in action everywhere in this world at this point. One of the first things that was hit, by the way, was fast food restaurants. As more fast food chains opened that were better, higher quality than the initial McDonald's and KFC's and all of those things. Uh, those big, well, mega corporations effectively found themselves in pretty hot water because they were getting outplayed and they needed to increase quality really fast or succumb to problems. I mean, there's actually a lot of stories about almost all fast food chains that had existed, but for 50 plus years, getting demolished in the modern day just by not increasing the quality of their products while someone new comes along and just wrecks them. Pretty insane, actually. Oh, but yeah, congratulations! Game preservation becomes Diablo Immortal type of business practices. That's very cool. Anyway, that was Belly Earth News. 10 out of 10. Bye.